Everybody, Invisiblekatana here with my review for The Last of Us Episode 8, When We Are in Need. This, of course, is a 420 review, hence the baked sushi and the crazy Doctor Strange robe. Before we get into the episode, of course, you can see we got my wolves. Actually, I only have wolves. I don't have actual, dog stuff. This is Timber, by the way. It's from January something. January 17th, 2013. Got that at U of M Dearborn. I still remember they wouldn't let me get that off, and I was just like, hey, can I get an empty polar bear? I just want a flat polar bear. They said no. Cheap bastards. Anyway, before we get into the review, I have to play this whole episode. Joel, Ellie, everything. The dog. Love this episode. Absolutely amazing. This was the one I was waiting for with Joel, where it was like they've built up the nice guy. They built up, him actually crying to his brother and stuff like that. I personally didn't like that, when it happened, but I understood why they did it for the story a little bit. And they had to be like, he's at this breaking point. We've gotten to the point where of course he wants to protect Ellie, but this was the first time we see it, because he was like, I'm gonna protect her, I'm gonna take her. Boom, he got stabbed. He's been out. He's been out the whole time. So this was like his comeback, where it's like, I'm gonna do what I said I'm gonna do. And we got the scene, boom, right in the kneecap, and he's twisting his jaw. When he said what town, I was like, yeah, that's it. That's the dog right there. The cage was just like, eh. I was like, yep. That's him. I mean, honestly, it happened when he killed the first guy in the basement, and he just held on to him, and he's just he was just like a dummy wrapped around the guy's neck, and they're just kind of spinning and turn a little bit. They hit the ground, and he's just holding on. He's like, this is it. Ellie's like, hey, there's people coming. You fight for your life. Do not die. Kill this man. He had one move, and that was it. And he waited. That guy went past him, and he had to just hold on. Otherwise, they were both gone. And it's just like, man, that was crazy. And then, of course, he goes through, knocking people out left and right, tying them up. And then we have a really good dark scene, kind of a little bit of a flip. I guess it's an addition on the game, technically. It's the map thing making a comeback, because in the show, they do it twice. They don't do that in the game, where they have a nice version. Joel doesn't have a nice version in the game. So it was actually really cool, because when they did that initially, it was like, oh, it technically shows up in the first and in the second game. So I was like, oh, it's a map reference. At this point, it's technically in the entire franchise. So it was like, oh, it's just a map reference. That's kind of cool. I didn't think about the fact that he does that later during that dark scene, and how they would connect that back to earlier on we saw him do it. And it was like, oh, here's the super cool version. It's like, hey, point to this, make sure it's the same as hers. And that's pretty much it. And then it's like, that was super chill. They're making jokes and they got soup. It's like, all right, that's pretty neat. This was knife and kneecap, point to it, kills the guy anyway. And then it's like, he was telling you the truth. It's like, oh, I believe him. And then he kills the dude anyway. And it was like, the dog. And it was good. That was crazy. And then, of course, Ellie's side of things was definitely amazing. It's been a long time since David. And I remember playing that for the first time, and just how crazy it was going through that experience, where it starts off. And that's the funny thing about it, in the show and in the game, it's really easy. I think they almost make a reference before they meet Ellie. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was definitely before they meet Ellie, sorry. And they had a reference to where it's like, something's weird. It was like they first introduced it with the girl's dad, where they were doing the funeral, and he kind of looks over and it's like, and then he's like, oh, the ground's too hard to dig through. We'll bury your dad in the spring. Even from that, I was like, they did set it up that it was weird. And I kind of wish they didn't. I wish it was just maybe just go with the cult angle. And it seems like for people that never watched it, it's just the classic crazy cult guy. Because they hadn't really, hit religion just yet. So it was like, here's the crazy cult guy, and then flip it and be like, oh no, this dude is not religious or anything, which they do technically flip, because they have the whole cult thing in there. And then when it gets to the cannibal part, it's like, oh, I don't care at all about the religion stuff. So it was actually a bit darker, where he's like, I'm kind of just hiding that for them because they need that crap. I'm just dark. I'm evil. I know what needs to be done, and I'm gonna eat these people to survive. And if I gotta eat the other people that I'm feeding people to, so be it. I'm gonna do what I need to do. And it's like, all right, that's an additional dark thing where he's lying to a group of people, because in the game it's kind of just they start off as criminals, because obviously they attack you in the school, and then it's like they go through the motions and stuff, and it starts off simple. It's like, oh crap, they just want revenge. And so it's like, oh man, they're mad that obviously in the game you kill a billion effing dudes, but in this it was just it's one man, and it's a bit more realistic, of course, compared to they went through. It would have been sick if they did, but if it was just the game where they killed 15 people, I mean, heck, the couple of people he killed in this felt like a lot, because it was this is one dude taking out groups of people, so it's intense either way. But I love the way it was handled just throughout the episode. I thought the action was good, the suspense was good, Ellie stuff was great, and the connections and the differences, which this almost might have been the closest one to one. Left Behind was number 2, like it was right there, aside from the fact that they don't show the present day stuff. But in this, it was like they actually have, it felt like they had literally every element of it. Plus, because it's not gameplay, so you don't actually you don't ride the horse until you do ride the horse until it gets shot in the game, but in the show you have to watch it. So it's like, well, that takes like a couple of seconds, like you could do that in real time. It's like, well, that was like 2 minutes on a horse. They don't really get close enough to do it. Like 2 minutes of people missing shots is a super long time, So gameplay wise, it's very different than watching a TV show. So I like the way they did all of that stuff and kind of shortened some things up. And because they had to do that just with how it looks realistically without playing it, they also had time to throw in the religious stuff, him like smacking the girl and then picking her right up, and then Troy Baker throughout the episode, the original Joel. So that was really cool that he was in the whole episode right up until he wasn't. But that was really cool. I saw a quote from him where he was like, I just thought I'd be a clicker or something. This is better. And then as soon as the episode started, I was like, oh, he's the right hand man. I see why this is better. Like he's in a ton of the episode. So that was really cool. So we officially have Jeffrey Pierce, who is Tommy. He played the right-hand man to the woman a few episodes back. And now we have Joel playing the right-hand man to David. So I thought that was kind of funny how like Tommy and Joel end up being like the second in command in other encampments. So I was like, all right, that's kind of cool. But his performance was incredibly well done. Just the way they go about it, where he's the guy who's like, I don't really like, they start off with the feeling, like I sense some doubt and stuff. So I like the way all of that was handled, where it was like he doesn't want to do it, but he does still do it because it's like, ultimately, I can't really challenge this dude. Like, he's like, maybe that's God's will. He turned around with like the dad stare and was just like, and straight to the ground. I was like, man, look at that snow. So, he couldn't do it. Like, he didn't feel like he'd have, any backup. And it doesn't matter because at the end, he's dead. Like, it's just the way it's done. Gets hit in the neck, which is a great scene. Even in the game, it was a crazy moment where, kind of one-to-one is like, I'm infected, roll up her sleeve, as they're distracted, grabs the butcher knife, hits the one dude, and then takes off, and then you're in a boss fight. And it was so well done. The way they handled it, I thought they were legit about to go to like an actual second stage when she stabbed him the first time. Because the way they did it, like, it felt like such a long scene, and he was kind of just like, crap. I was like, oh snap, they're gonna legit do like he's stabbed, so that's how she got away, and they're gonna do a part 2 as it's burning down even more. But they ultimately just do like she does the stab, and then that's the end. As he's trying to choke her, rape her, really. And it was just a crazy sequence, and the way they ended it, honestly, I felt like it was like 2 times longer than it was in the game. It's been a super long time since I played the game, but I was like, this feels way longer, and I'm almost 100% sure if it's not twice as much, it's more than 2 times as long as it was in the game. And like they actually have like the blood getting on the camera and all that stuff. Like, this was a super dark and intense moment. And unlike the game, Joel doesn't show up. I was waiting for him to like kind of burst through the door and kind of grab her, because in the game she's in like the middle of doing it and like screaming and stuff, and then he tackles her away. And this is kind of the result of what happens when Joel doesn't get there before she, like, what happens if he just doesn't get there before she's finished. And she goes for a while and just hacks this dude up, and she has to do it. Like, it's really interesting, like just that those extra couple of seconds, it makes it like she has to do it on her own, because in the game he pops up right as it's happening. She already killed him, but as she's like in the middle of it, he's able to like calm her down after a couple seconds. It's the same reaction where she thinks it's somebody else. But in the show, it's like she did it. Like, it was 100%. It was over, and she went through that door, and it was like, I have no idea what comes next, but I survived this, and I just have to figure out how to survive next. And then he pops up. So it was like just those extra couple seconds is her just like in the middle of just nothingness. Like, who knows what happens next? Joel could be dead already. I don't know. But he pops up and everything's good. She's able to cry. Of course, he hits her with "It's okay, baby girl." And it was like, I knew at some point after being a dad, I was like, I'm going to somehow experience the story. One of these moments is going to hit. It's going to be a dad moment. I wasn't expecting it to be from the show, because that was a couple years ago when I was having my daughter. And so I wasn't expecting it to be like the live action retelling of the game story. So they got me. I didn't cry like crazy. I didn't really cry at all. I had like just the welling up, and I had like, the single tear, and I was just like, that's his daughter. So I'm like, I don't know how I'm gonna feel next episode, because I'm like, totally different perspective from when I was a kid and I first played it, and now I'm a dad, and it's like, I don't know where I'm at. We'll see how I feel next week. But definitely loved this episode. The action was intense. The emotions were intense. The acting, incredibly well done. David was always one of my favorites in the game, played by Nolan North, which was the second big surprise with that character, because he'd been Nathan Drake in Uncharted. I'm pretty sure Uncharted 3, maybe that came out after The Last of Us, but you had like the first 2 games, and it's like, that's Nolan North's voice. I know Nolan North. I know what he looks like. It's same with Troy Baker. And then they had, The Last of Us come out, and then this David dude comes along, and he's just talking it up, and it gets to the credits, and they let pause on his name because it was like, this is, our Nathan Drake helped us out with like this really deep character, and he gets like a moment in the credits where it's like David, played by Nolan North, and I was like, holy crap! Like, I thought I knew his voice. He sounded so different, and I was like, that was just, So just shout out to Nolan North. The original interpretation was great. I like this interpretation as well. Like, they do the religious leader thing. Both versions I think are really well done. I don't know which version I like more. I think it's just the sharp cut in the game where it's gameplay and it goes from instantly from like revenge to cannibalism. It's really fast comparatively speaking, where they have a lot of the in between in the show where they can add the religious element, like, oh, it's a cult. And then for people obviously that haven't played the game, it's like, oh snap, it's a cult cannibal. It's cannibal cult, which is a group or something. That's a thing. Cannibal cult is definitely a thing. But I loved it. I like the way it was handled in this, but in the game, it's so sharp, that twist from you just think it's revenge the whole time until it's like, oh, these are body parts. Like, I think that's how it happens in the game. And I really like that. The twist is just like instantaneous, and it's just super sharp because you're running for your life on like revenge stuff. That's what you assume it is. And then boom, cannibals. Like, we're not just going to kill you, we're going to eat you. And so it turns super, super sharp. And plus, obviously, I knew the story. So in this, it was like, I technically know what's coming as well. But I still like that sharp nature of it. And I kind of wish they didn't hint at the fact that they were cannibals, like literally from the very beginning with the girl's dad. It was like, man, I wish they didn't hint at all, because I was so curious, like, are they going to keep the cannibal thing? Or is that like that one thing that was like, oh, it's a little too much? Considering how they do it. In the game, obviously, it's a bit more visceral as well. Like, they do have like the hanging body thing. Which they play as a great moment, which that reminds me that this episode is a horror episode. In the game, I'm just playing and I'm like, I know I'm going to beat them. This is, I'm sneaking around and stuff. It's an intense moment, but it's not scary. When you watch it, it's like, oh, this is actually a horror segment. This is terrifying. Watching Ellie go through this stuff. It's a horror segment, her trying to figure out, how do I escape these people? The horse gets shot. Does she end up escaping further? She doesn't. She gets captured. What happens next? It's actually like a horror element playing out. And in the game, I didn't realize that. They have like that spooky moment where you first see the bodies in the game. You're like in pitch black, and I think you like bump something. Where you don't have to bump anything. It's a dark room, and you flick the flashlight on, and there's just bodies right in front of you. And it's like, holy crap, these guys are cannibals. And I think, I think it's the same thing where like Ellie we find out from Ellie first, and then it flips to Joel, and then it's like, oh crap, this is his realization that these people are eating people. They might eat Ellie. So just amazing in the game, amazing in the show. The action was intense. Like the interrogation scene is just, that was the moment I was waiting for. Like, that was the dark Joel that I was waiting to see, because I'm like, they're making this dude super duper nice in the show, because they gotta, hey, look at this guy, he's rough and tumble, he kind of is a dad but doesn't want to be a dad, he's been hurt so bad. And then this episode was like, I'm coming for my daughter, and then I'm gonna stab you in the leg, and I'm gonna kill you, and I'm gonna kill him anyway. The dog. Great episode. Cannot wait for the finale. I hope we get to see some infected in the next one. I feel like we've hardly seen any at all. They haven't done the swarm thing outside of the very first time, so if they're saving it for the finale, they could do it. I feel like they could do something with the infected in the opening portion. They technically, they might have to, because a very special scene is coming up next week that I kept forgetting about, and the finale's here. So there's going to be a really special scene that I'm definitely looking forward to. We have to see some infected then, I think, for that scene to work, because otherwise it doesn't really make sense. Yeah, so if they keep the location the same, which I assume they would, they'd almost have to, actually. So considering that is the case, they kind of have to show us some infected in the next episode. They might not be a threat or anything. I would hope that they are, because I feel like they haven't been enough in the show. Even with the Left Behind thing, I think even if you never played the games, you kind of knew where that was headed. And still, it was only one. I was like, dang, I wish it was like in the game, there's a bunch of them again. So I was like, I wish we got that, even if we knew what was happening, just that intensity of them kind of trying to escape. So it's been kind of lackluster on the infected front, and this definitely was the episode for just action as a whole, but it was definitely against humans. So I would love to see at least a little bit, like at least just a cool sequence against the infected. It's the last episode, so I hope we get that, and then we get like the final human element, like just the end of the story, because I'm like, we gotta have some threat before we get to the final location. There just has to be something. So I hope that's what we get in the next episode. I'm sure it'll be great no matter how they do it. I might be disappointed if there's not enough infected or whatever, but I'm sure I'll love it no matter what. But would love to know what you guys thought about this episode. So please put your comments down in the comment section below. Let me know your favorite parts about it, your least favorite parts about it. Obviously the finale is coming up. If you played the game, what do you guys want to see? If you have not played the game, what are you expecting? Like, just if you had a guess, where are we headed? What do you guys want to see as well, whether you played the game or not? I'm not sure what I want to see. I think, considering there are 2 games and now they know what they're gonna do, I'm very curious about the lead-in to The Last of Us Part 2. Extremely curious. Like, how are they gonna do that? Visually, like, just human-wise, as human element-wise, there's some elements where it's just like, how much are they gonna tease? How are they gonna tease it? What are they gonna do? So I'm looking forward to that for sure, because I'm like, that's a big question. Aside from the thing that I want to see, there's the actual next part of the story that they can show us and kind of blend things together just a little bit more. So I'm excited to see how that turns out. I'm very curious how everyone who hasn't played the game is going to experience the end of the show as well. So I'm definitely looking forward to that. But like I said, we'll love to know what you guys thought about this one, where things are headed. Also, shameless plug, because I rarely do this. If you guys could check out my streaming channel, I would greatly appreciate that. I recently did Dead Space. Leading up to Resident Evil, I'm going to try to get in a couple of like quick streams where it's just I play like just one stream is an entire game, a couple hours here and there. So I'm hoping to do that the next couple of weeks. If Resident Evil 4 gets its demo this Thursday with the Capcom showcase thing, I'm definitely going to be streaming that on Thursday. 100% I'm streaming the RE4 demo on Thursday if it happens. I really hope it does. But thanks for checking us out. If you guys would check out my streaming stuff, I'd greatly appreciate it. But either way, please put your comments down in the comment section below. And of course, thanks for watching.